This is from Herodotus toward the beginning of his Histories, as we call them. And here Herodotus is quoting for the first time something that goes beyond his own discourse. And what he's quoting from is poetry. Not just any poetry, this is poetry as articulated by the god Apollo himself, the god who drives the intellectual energy of the sun. And when Herodotus quotes the words of Apollo, and this is difficult for us to wrap our minds around right away, Apollo is speaking in poetry because gods and heroes, as we know from the medium of the dactylic hexameter, always speak in poetic form. And so the god is speaking in dactylic hexameters. And the god says, I know the number of the grains of sand. And he goes on to tell about all the other things he knows. But what is truly remarkable for me is that the very first word of poetry that Herodotus quotes, and remember, this poetry is spoken by Apollo, the god himself. The very first word is oida. I know. I know the number of grains of sand in the universe. Why does he know? It's because he has the superior vantage point of occupying the position of the sun at noontime. The sun sees everything in this our world, and therefore Apollo knows the exact number of the grains of sand in our world. So that kind of overarching perspective, which is really a universal perspective, an absolute perspective, is really the model for Herodotus himself to emulate. And here's where it becomes very important that the word that Herodotus uses to express what he does, Historiā, or as he says it in his Ionic dialect, Historiae, this word, Historiā, Historiae, is what we call history. In fact, this word is what becomes, in our modern vocabulary, the word history. And so, the medium of Herodotus, Historiā, is directly linked to what Apollo says he can do with his superior vantage point, his supreme vantage point, which is to know everything. It's not that Herodotus knows everything. His medium has as its model a source of authority that does know everything. So that puts the whole concept of history in a different light, doesn't it? If you will excuse my playing with words. And in point of fact, when Herodotus starts his quotations from the Delphic oracle, and this is his very first one, what he's essentially doing is co-opting the medium of Apollo himself, the medium of the oracle of Apollo at Delphi, as a backup for his own medium, which is Historiā. So that is authorization, is it not? This is absolute authorization, universal authorization. That is the aim of Herodotus, whom we think of as the father of history. That's a kind of backwards way of trying to imagine what it was like to pioneer a relatively new form of discourse. I'm not saying that there had not been masters of what Herodotus calls history before Herodotus. I am saying that he is a very special intellectual who can combine not only the traditions of oracular speech, of using poetry to express great universal truths. He is also somebody who is well versed in science, who knows something about, for example, the science of surveying. And for him, Historiā, the way it combines so many skills, so many mental skills, is to that extent something new, or at least something expanded. And I'm fascinated with the fact that here we have a medium that is expressing this power of having knowledge of the universe, expressing it in a way that is perfectly applicable to the idea of a hero. And I go back again to the fact that the hero Protesilaos himself, as staged by Herodotus, communicates not only to the characters within the narrative, but also to those who are taking in the narrative the ultimate message of the ancient Greek hero.